At the height of the pandemic, the U.S. passport shared the same travel privileges with that of Rwanda's passport, a big blow to the ability to travel freely as an American. But yet, the U.S. passport also has one other unique feature. The government can take it away if you don't pay. I'm going to share with you the latest update on canceling your passport. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. This is Nomad Capitalist, where we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. And because we do things legally here, I think it's always worthwhile to share the disclaimer that is the goody two-shoes of the offshore world. We're not encouraging anyone in the United States to not pay their taxes or to do anything against the law. We simply encourage people to go where you're treated best. Set up a proper plan, go where you're treated best, and any obligations that you don't want to deal with can be dealt with in a legal way. One of the obligations, of course, as a U.S. citizen, is you have to pay taxes no matter where you live anywhere in the world, including if you live in the United States. Imagine that. And what the United States did a number of years ago was said, if you have a seriously delinquent tax debt, we're going to, from the tax side of the government, advise the State Department, the passport issuing side of the government, hey, don't give this guy a passport, don't renew their passport, or simply cancel their passport, effectively grounding them in some cases, or forcing them to go back to the U.S. to deal with this. Now, I've seen some things from various tax lawyers where there have been various constitutional challenges to this, the idea that international travel is a right, it goes against your Fifth Amendment, to be able to not be able to travel, and I'm going to get back to that in a minute, but the idea was, if you don't pay, you're not going to be able to travel. And so again, I have pushed back on people who said, hey, I'm going to live in the U.S. with my Bitcoin. How are they going to know? I've always said they're going to find out eventually. They know what they're doing. Just pay your taxes. And if you don't want to pay the taxes, then find a way to reduce your taxes. We talk about it all the time right here. There's no need to live in fear. There's no need to be looking over your shoulder. Just do things properly. But I've also said that I personally, one time, many years ago, had a situation where I paid the government, in this case the government of California, money that I owed them. They cashed my check and then later said, hey, we're taking money out of your bank account you never paid. I said, literally, here's the proof. And I had a fight with them for a long time. If you ran a business, to the extent that you were a 7- or 8-figure or 9-figure entrepreneur, I imagine the numbers that I was dealing with back then would be child's play potentially to you. They could make a mistake over enough money to where you could become a so-called tax delinquent, even though you weren't a tax delinquent. They make mistakes all the time. They miss things. You sign the wrong place. They don't process it properly. You may not even know for quite some time. And so the idea that they can take your passport in the U.S., it's not the only country where they can do that for various reasons, but it's troubling that you could effectively be grounded. It's one reason why having a second passport is important. Not to be able to let you do things with impunity, but to be able to make sure that you have options in case something goes wrong. And so last summer, 2021, an appeals court in the U.S. ruled that U.S. passports can indeed be revoked over tax debt. According to Bloomberg Law, a provision of federal law that allows the U.S. State Department to revoke the passports of delinquent taxpayers does not constitute a violation of their constitutional rights, the 10th Circuit said. This is from the Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act back in 2015. They said, hey, that's perfectly legal, does not violate your rights. Just came out a couple days ago from one of the journals that we get access to, one of the tax journals that we geek out on around here, saying that has now has gone up one final level, and indeed, the U.S. government is within their rights to cancel your passport. Now, it should come as no surprise that when you sue the government often sides with the government. That is something that happens a lot of times. And so all of the writings that we've read from various attorneys, of which I am not one, talking about how the taxpayer can fight back and talking about all these different cases they filed. I mean, to me, it seems like it's pretty, again, speaking not as an attorney, as pretty settled to this point that this has been a law for a number of years now. We talked about it when it first came out. We shared with you why, even if all of your affairs are in order, as they should be, that the idea that the government is looking for ways to shut down your ability to travel, shut down what is essentially, it is indeed a human right. A lot of countries agreed to that. The idea that anyone should be able to freely leave their own country and return to their own country. We've seen that not everyone can freely return to their own country. Look at Australia in the last 2 years. But now the U.S. has enshrined that you're not free to necessarily leave your own country, or if you're overseas, continue to travel freely. And the most troubling thing with this is that if you are a U.S. citizen or a U.S. person overseas, you may have a harder time communicating with the tax authorities. If you have just a foreign address, it may take a long time for them to get stuff to you. And so there's a lot of inefficiencies in the process that you should definitely work out. I recommend having international tax advisors. We work with a number of them, having certain things in place to where if you are living overseas, you're protected. But the bottom line is, for me, this is a slippery slope. And the courts have now upheld that there are ways they can simply say, hey, you're grounded, we're taking your passport, we're canceling your passport, revoking your passport, as the article says. That should be concerning to people because these things really don't tend to shrink in size. The scope tends to expand. And I ask myself, what are the other reasons why they could decide to deny your passport? What other agencies might have an impact in wanting to say, hey, don't give this guy a passport. They didn't do what we want them to. They did or didn't do something wrong. And you just look at some of the protests going on in the world. You look at all the different things that are happening. You can start to imagine, I'm not trying to be conspiratorial, but trying to imagine what are the things that could be next on the list. You think, hey, maybe they make it even more draconian in terms of someone who has an alleged tax deficiency. And so obviously we want to do things legally. I will also say the U.S. has a lot of laws. And so, compared to a lot of other countries, things that you might get in trouble for in the U.S., might not really be an issue in a lot of other places. And so if you're in the U.S., again, you should follow those laws. But to me, it is concerning with the way where they can simply say, you're our citizen and you're stuck here. You can't leave. We've seen articles, which I believe are a little bit hyperbolic, quite frankly, a little bit unfair to the U.S. government about people who are having a hard time giving up their U.S. citizenship. They say, that's fine. You have your rules. We don't want to be a part of it. We're going to exit the system. They've been having a difficult time. That, is the direction that I believe things could be headed. It's where it's harder to get out. It's harder to give up. And this is not just the U.S. It could be many different Western countries that are really enjoying the powers that they have accumulated over the years. To me, that's a concern. I would want to have a second citizenship. I ideally would want to be living outside of the country. Again, not because I lived in the U.S. for years. I always paid taxes in full. I'm a believer in you follow the rules, and if you don't want to do that, then you go somewhere else. Because it's just what I want to do. I also don't want to be worried about what's happening to me next. I don't want to get in any entanglements with these people. Believe me, okay? But I ultimately decided it's too stressful being part of a system where they're always looking for ways to come and take advantage of you. They're always looking for ways to shut you down. Ultimately, I left that system. That's a decision that you have to make. But this upholding of this ruling for yet again should be a little bit concerning for anyone who wonders what they're going to do next. Don't stop now. We've got well over 1,000 more videos here on YouTube for you to watch and learn how to go where you're treated best. And if you want to work with Nomad Capitalist personally, go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply, learn about our unique, tried and true process, garnered over years of experience, and learn how you can become our client.